You might think of having a YouTube channel as being low risk, but these like content creation businesses actually do have just as much risk as any other business. Reposting a video or reposting a picture that you don't have the rights to, that could be like a $30,000 issue.
Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, the weekly show for nomads, work campers, RVers, and entrepreneurs looking to earn a living or build a business while enjoying the RV lifestyle. This week's host is Jim Nelson. Let's settle in and enjoy the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, brought to you by RV Life.
Welcome back to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Jim at RV Life, and today we're diving into one of the most overlooked and absolutely essential aspects of running any business on the road: legal protections. Whether you're a digital nomad, content creator, coach, or small business owner operating from your RV, you've probably wondered, do I really need an LLC? Or is it okay to use that photo I found? Or maybe you got mad because someone stole your content. Well, today's guest is here to address all these concerns and a whole lot more. I have the honor of chatting with Berkeley Sweetapple, founder of a digital law firm dedicated to helping online entrepreneurs safeguard their businesses. From forming an official business entity to protecting your intellectual property, Berkeley walks us through the top 5 legal mistakes all RV entrepreneurs make and how to avoid them. We also discuss how to avoid copyright traps and how downloading a contract template can help, or when it may be better to consult a lawyer. You'll learn the difference between copyright and trademark and why both matter. We'll also hear some real horror stories that started with simple, avoidable missteps. And importantly, what you should actually have on your website to stay compliant. We even dive into how AI and social platforms are not the place to seek legal advice. If you've been treating legal stuff as an "I'll deal with it later" problem, this episode is your wake-up call. So get ready to take notes right after this brief break. #ad. Insert clear and conspicuous sponsored content message disclaimer here.
Searching for the perfect campground can be overwhelming, but not with RV Life Campgrounds. With user-generated reviews, RV-specific data, and real-world internet speed tests, you'll have all the information you need to find your ideal spot. Don't leave your camping experience to chance. Trust the experts at RV Life. Visit campgrounds.rvlife.com to start your search.
Hi, Berkeley. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, you're extremely welcome. We're going to talk all about legal concerns for digital nomads and RV entrepreneurs. But first, this is technically the RV Life Entrepreneur Podcast, and you run a quote, digital law firm for online businesses. So we're excited to have you. Digital nomads and RVers have a lot in common with most entrepreneurs. We tend to live life by our own rules. And you're a lawyer with your own firm, so you're rather entrepreneurial. So what does it mean to be an entrepreneur to you?
Wow. So I think being an entrepreneur means just doing business in your own way and with your unique spin, and not living by anyone else's rules on how you should do business.
It's a great way to put it, and you can define us in all sorts of different ways. But I'd love to start with kind of your own business experience and how that may have shaped the way you're helping clients. I understand you started a legal career in litigation, and you say you watched a lot of people fight expensive legal battles in court over problems that could have been avoided with proper legal planning. So we're going to get into some details, but maybe we can cover some of the most important practices for legal planning when operating a business, or are there any that you might have learned the hard way?
Sure. Yeah, there are a lot. So I spent 7 years doing litigation. So after problems came up and just seeing how much of this could have been avoided. So I can kind of run through the 5 top legal mistakes I see, if that's helpful.
Fantastic. I think that'd be a great place to start. And then maybe we can pick them apart as we dive in.
Perfect. So, number one, not having a business entity. So, having a business entity protects your personal assets if your business were to ever get a judgment against it. So, really important to form like an LLC or a corporation, something that has like that shields your personal assets from liability in case anything were to ever happen. Two, and I'm doing this by memory, so they're not in order in any order of importance. But having contracts is really important, and contracts that are like specifically tailored for your business, not just like taken from Google or ChatGPT or like borrowed from a coach. So having like industry specific contracts that really reflect how you're doing business. Number three, like make sure you have website policies. So if you're operating in the online space, typically you're doing that with a website or using a website in some kind of way. And you're legally required to have a privacy policy. If you're collecting any kind of like visitor data, like if you have a freebie opt-in where you're collecting email addresses, you're legally required to have a privacy policy. So I see a lot of entrepreneurs without one, or like with one that doesn't actually reflect how they're collecting personal data. So making sure that you have one and having a website terms of use, which is like your contract with anyone who comes to your website. Four, having disclaimers. So if you are, depending on what industry you're in, you want to make sure you have certain disclaimers. Like if you're running a health blog and giving any kind of health advice, you want to make sure you have a disclaimer that says like consult your doctor and this isn't medical advice, things like that. And then finally, protecting your intellectual property. Intellectual property is a huge concern, especially in the online space, because you're operating federally or even globally, and you want to make sure that your intellectual property, like your trademarks and your copyright, are protected. So that's kind of like a big picture mistakes I see that could be avoided. So feel free if you want to jump into any of those, just let me know.
Yeah, I hope people are taking notes because we just covered a lot of stuff and people could tune out right now and go get some of this stuff done. But you mentioned mistakes. I wonder, what's the biggest legal mistake you've ever made in your own business or personal life and how that might have shaped how you're helping people?
Oh my gosh. Now? So this is embarrassing because I'm an attorney.
Right.
And luckily nothing happened. So when I first got out of law school, I was pretty sure that I didn't want to do like the traditional legal path. I kind of hated it. But you have to like make money. So I did litigation, but on the side, I had a legal lifestyle blog and it was called Lady J. And even though I had gone to law school, I'm not really sure why. I don't know if I was paying attention in IP, but I didn't even think about trademarks. I just named the blog. I liked the name Lady J. It was short for Lady Justice, and just went about living my life. And afterwards, like after I had transitioned the blog into my business now, which has a different name, I realized that someone else had the trademark for Lady J. And this is a problem. This is like a big legal mistake I see clients make every single day, which is not making sure the name is legally available before you launch something and grow your business using that name. So luckily, I didn't get in trouble for using the name, and I didn't have to change it at the time. Nobody noticed that I was using it because I didn't have a very successful blog. But this is like one of those like big problems that can have really expensive consequences that I see online entrepreneurs make all the time, is like not making sure the name is available and then not trademarking.
Sure. And I've been on the opposite end of that where we have a brand, Tripods, that we protect and are always on the lookout for that sort of thing. So we're going to dive into IP a little bit later and cover that in detail. Are there any other, maybe legal horror stories that come to mind that serve as cautionary tales for business owners? Any cases that kind of stand out that like, you got to know about this, don't do that?
Yeah. So just making sure you have contracts with if you're a service provider, having contracts with your client. If you're like doing any kind of contract work, making sure you have contracts. So I can tell you a legal horror story that comes to mind.
All right.
We love the stories, right? We love the drama.
Mhm.
I had a client who was a web designer, and she had done a website for this med spa. And the med spa had given her pictures to put on the website, and like before and after pictures. And the pictures actually belonged to a famous photographer.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
And my client, the web designer, didn't know this, and she didn't have a contract with the med spa. So the famous photographer sued the med spa, and these pictures had been registered with the US Copyright Office. And what that
Mhm.
means is there's statutory damages when somebody like infringes,
Yeah.
meaning the photographer could get up to $30,000 per picture that was like infringing and used without their permission. So they sued the med spa and then also sued my client. And because there was
Oh.
no like contract and there was nothing indemnifying my client and protecting her, she got dragged into mediation. And luckily we were able to, settle it, and she didn't have to pay much, but she wouldn't have had to pay anything had there been a contract in place preventing yeah.
That's a horror story indeed. So, in this particular case, could the client have had a contract with the med spa? In that case, they were solely responsible
Exactly.
for providing that image?
Yes. And that the med
I've
spa would
seen this
have to
happen.
protect and indemnify my client and cover any legal fees resulting from the infringement of, from the picture.
I've seen it happen a number of times. In fact, both a client and an employer have been approached by what some might call predatory law firms out there that are quote unquote protecting the rights of others. But what do you think of that term? Because it's happened so often, and people are approached and say, you're using this photo and you're not allowed to. I'm speaking from a case in particular where I was using a copyrighted image of a cartoon that I was gifted by the artist. So the artist drew the cartoon. However, even though he drew the cartoon and gifted me the original, he still didn't really own the rights to syndicated artwork. Luckily, I reached out to the artists and they said, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. I received one of those letters. It said, you must cease and desist. You must pay us this much now, or you're going to owe us more money later. And in my particular case, I had a relationship with the creator who then could reach their own legal team that reached out to the third party law firm. So of those law firms out there that are, people call them predatory. What do you think of those cases where, the law firms are just kind of scouring the internet for images and things that are in violation and, reaching out, to these poor independent bloggers?
I know. Well, it's not, it doesn't give lawyers a good name, but they are like real concerns. And what we're seeing lately is not just with copyright, but with privacy policies, is these predatory law firms will scan websites for privacy policy noncompliance. And
okay.
These are like strict liability statutes, meaning it doesn't matter if you don't know the privacy laws or you didn't mean to, there's strict liability. So if you're doing something that's not in compliance or in violation of the law, you could have to pay fines or legal fees. So we're seeing this a lot, and that's why I'm like shouting privacy policies from the rooftops, even though it's like the most boring legal document, because this is actually happening. And you need to make sure you have a cookies pop up and all of the things, because this is happening in real life. There are actually law firms that are spending time and money doing this, trying to find people who are not complying and then getting settlements.
That is scary indeed. And it sounds like it can all be prevented or avoided if you plan ahead. So you actually offer an expansive legal review to help businesses, business owners protect themselves. And you have services from contract drafting to dispute resolution. Many entrepreneurs don't realize the risks they're exposed to until it's too late. So what is involved with a typical legal review, and how can that help a new or even experienced entrepreneur?
Yeah, so we have like a variety of services at every price point to kind of like identify legal problems and then solve them. So at like the lowest end of the spectrum, we have free resources where we kind of walk you through the different items in your business that you need to pay attention to, like the 5 mistakes, something like that, but a little bit more expanded. I have like a legal must masterclass. So we also do legal audits in all of our VIP days. So that's like when you work one-on-one with us in my law firm, we'll go through your business and kind of identify the things that you do and don't have that could be costing you money or causing problems in the future. So things like, do you have a business entity? What kind of services are you providing? What kind of offers do you have? Have you protected, your business name and your course name and your program names with trademarks? Have you registered your original works of authorship, like course content or PDFs, with the U.S. Copyright Office? We go through your contracts, website policies, terms of purchase, everything like that to kind of identify where the holes are and then what you need to do from there.
That's comprehensive, and it sounds rather valuable. We talked about a lot of things right there, including the first 5 kind of legal blind spots. But for those who have been in business for a while, are there any like particular legal issues that tend to emerge like down the road that they should prepare for now ahead of time?
So most of the common issues I see are contract issues. So just issues with clients that come up because your contract is like not taking into consideration certain things that you do. So it's always a good idea to get your contract looked at like on an annual basis or anytime you add services, just to make sure you're covered. And then making sure all of your intellectual property is protected, because you don't want to get so far down the road in business and then realize that this offer you've been selling for years and years and years and people know you by is actually trademarked by someone else and you don't own it. So those are the 2 big ones I would say that come up. And we work with a lot of businesses that, we work with businesses who haven't launched an offer yet or made any money and they want to trademark something, and businesses that are like making $10 million a year and haven't gotten around to trademarking. So it's never too late until it is too late, like until someone else trademarks it first or,
Interesting. So as the RV entrepreneur here, many RV-based entrepreneurs and digital nomads, we have unconventional business models. We're freelancers, or we sell digital products and coaching, like you mentioned. We're developing brand partnerships. And a lot of us may not think about legal protection until the problem arises. So I wonder, like, legally speaking, how is a location-independent business ownership different than traditional bricks and mortar businesses that never moves?
So you want to make sure that you're getting a lot more exposure, like on a national level. So making sure that you're protected, like your intellectual property is protected nationwide is really important. You have a little bit more flexibility in terms of like where you're going to form your LLC. So that is helpful. And you have more flexibility with like, I'm not speaking to taxes. You should speak to an accountant, but just in terms of like avoiding tax liability by where you set up your LLC, things like that.
So you mentioned LLC. Let's jump right into legal structure of businesses and how that can have such a major implication when it comes to things like liability, taxes, and even long-term success. We're talking about LLC, sole proprietor, S corp. To be perfectly honest, my wife and I have operated as a sole proprietor for 25 plus years. Others I see out there like immediately forming an LLC. And Dave Ramsey or someone once said, you can start a business with a checkbook and a DBA. and then maybe form once you have a target on your back. So how would you help someone choose the right business structure, whether it's LLC or S Corp or sole proprietor, like which is right for whom, and when does the time come to establish an actual organization?
So it depends also on like what type of business you're running. If you're running like a riskier business, like say you're, renting trampolines to children, like you want to make sure you have an LLC or a corporation on day one. And most people will form an LLC because there's less paperwork to deal with, but it gives you that like wall around your personal assets, which a sole proprietorship doesn't. A lot of people do go the sole proprietor route for a while. It's inexpensive, relatively inexpensive to file an LLC and keep up with the annual paperwork. And if you have personal assets, might just give people peace of mind that those will never be touched if your business has a judgment against it. So I think it's just an easy way to like shield your personal assets and give you that peace of mind that your business is separate.
Can you give me an example of the types of businesses that might make a difference for different legal structures?
Like having an LLC or a corporation versus not? Like what is an S Corp and when would someone go that route? And, when you talk about LLC versus sole proprietor, you might have just covered that, but, our business doesn't have a big target on our back. There's not a huge number of personal assets tied to the business. So when is it, what legal structure kind of depends on what type of businesses, like for the people out there who just have a YouTube channel? So most businesses are going to be an LLC. If you're taking on investors, you might be a corporation.
Okay.
But I would say like 95% of the businesses we work with form LLCs. In terms of like low risk versus high risk businesses, like the trampoline example, if you have a YouTube channel, there are actually so many, like you might think of having a YouTube channel as being low risk, but these like content creation businesses actually do have just as much risk as any other business because you have like the copyright infringement issues, just like reposting a video or reposting a picture that you don't have the rights to. That could be like a $30,000 issue.
Interesting.
Brand collaborations, you're in contracts with other people. I'm more on the conservative side where I would say form an LLC sooner rather than later. But again, a lot of people operate as a sole proprietorship like for a long time and don't have issues.
Interesting. Luckily we have.
And you can't, like, once someone has sued you, you can't then form a business entity and be protected for the prior act.
Interesting. So prepare, plan ahead. That sounds like the best advice. Does doing business in different states kind of affect your legal protections, or is that more of a tax liability issue? Like the people who are doing fairs, maybe going from state to state, collecting employment, income in different states. Does that affect legal structure at all?
No, that would be more of a tax issue.
Okay.
Where like in your contract, that will state where dispute resolution will happen. So like where a mediation would happen or where you would go to arbitration or court. So that's a really important clause like in your contracts, just making sure that that is in a state where your like home base is or where your business is registered or where courts will be friendly to businesses.
Does that have to be your domicile state? For instance, we are currently Colorado residents, but our nonprofit is founded in Texas. So your contracts should indicate, would they need to be your domicile state, or could you select legal friendly state?
You can select the state that you want it in. Typically, you have to have some ties to that state, like your registered agent or you're doing business there.
Okay. So, again, it comes back to planning ahead and having some sort of, connection to that state, and because maybe that state is a little more legal friendly, that sort of thing. Okay. So let's jump into the whole copyright and IP mess. Many nomadic entrepreneurs, like we say, we're content creators. We're often building personal brands with blogs, courses, YouTube and social media, but we don't tend to take those steps to protect that content. So what are the best practices for protecting our copyright? Or let's begin with definition. What's the difference between copyright, trademark, intellectual property protection, and what are the best practices?
So copyright and trademark are both types of intellectual property. Trademarks protect any word, phrase, or design that identifies the source of your goods or services. So if you think of Nike, the word Nike, the swoosh, the just do it, those are all trademarks that when you see them, you think of Nike. Sure. Copyright protects any original works of authorship. So photos, videos, PDFs, ebooks, things like that.
Can you still copyright an item just by publishing it? You're the first out there, you publish it, in the old days, quote unquote, you'd send a copy of it to yourself by mail and therefore it has been published. Just by publishing it, do you own the copyright?
So you do own the copyright if you create something. However, the only way that you can sue somebody and get damages for copyright violation is by registering it with the U.S. Copyright Office.
Meaning like register the trademark for it, or can you actually is that a different class? You register the copyright of a given work?
You register the copyright. So say you drew a picture, you own the copyright to that. But if you wanted to sell that picture, and it would be a smart thing to do to register that with the U.S. Copyright Office. That way, if somebody who bought your picture decided to sell it in mass quantities, you could have a remedy against them and you could sue them and get damages. If you do it within 3 months of publication, you can get up to $30,000 per violation plus your attorney's fees. If you don't register it, your remedies are really limited.
Interesting. So just because I own it and I did it long ago, if someone then reproduces it on a T-shirt and starts selling it, I may not have the rights, even though I produced it, unless I had registered.
It's just harder to get any kind of damages. Yeah.
So when it comes to like the business name or a logo or a word that I came up with, tripod spelled a particular way with PAW in the middle, we were smart enough long ago to trademark that. But when should a business consider trademarking their name, their logo, their slogan, and when is it unnecessary or is it always necessary?
So anytime that you have a name that you love and you would be upset if you had to change and you intend on using for a while, like for years, that's when you would, one, make sure it's legally available. And that doesn't mean just doing like a Google search or searching Instagram.
Right.
It means hiring a lawyer to tell you that like there's nothing out there that's similar sounding, meaning, looking, so that you're not infringing on anyone's trademark. Because you want to make sure before you pick a name and move forward that nobody else has it. Because if you're using a name that someone else has trademarked, you could have to pay them your profits, and you don't want that to happen. So the earlier, the better. Ideally, before you launch. I know that isn't always practical, especially if you're just finding out about trademarking now and you've maybe already launched. But doing it as soon as you have a name, like a business name or a program name, a course name that you want to own and have the exclusive right to use.
So you mentioned course name there, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's my understanding that you can't trademark the title of a book, but can you trademark the title of a course?
Yes. So you can't trademark the title of a book unless it's part of a series. So unless it's the name of a series of books, you can trademark the name of a course.
Interesting. So we had published a book, Be More Dog, and I understood I couldn't trademark that as the title of the book, but I was able to trademark it for, classified for being used on a T-shirt. So there's a fine line there. You can't trademark the title of the book, but you can trademark the word phrase to protect yourself from people selling it on a T-shirt.
Yes,
correct?
You can trademark the name if you're selling apparel or any kind of goods, even ebooks. So it's kind of like doesn't make sense, but these are the rules.
It's a fine line.
These are the rules.
How important are those How important are those classifications? Because we went the DIY route originally with a few of our trademarks, and we thought we got them in the right classification. But then once we got more involved and we brought legal assistance on and turned to our lawyer to start registering some of these things, some of our original trademarks were classified in a different class, say Class X. Could that class, it's trademarked and it is registered, but would it still protect you in another class, like for apparel? But if it wasn't originally classified as apparel, are you still protected?
So it really depends on what you filed in. So I'll give you an example. Class 41 is the like education and entertainment class. So say you registered something under class 41 and you said education and entertainment, including podcasts in the nature of like entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
If you filed in that class, but you really wanted to file in class 9, which is for downloadable goods, namely podcasts, you would still be protected because even though they're in different classes, they're related. So one is like educational services, including podcasts. One is the actual good of like downloadable goods, including podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still protected. But if you actually meant to just file in class 25, which is the class for apparel, you're not protected because t-shirts are not related to podcasts.
Interesting. Even though the industry may be. So there's so many classes, it really kind of behooves us all to contact a lawyer to kind of go over which classes are best when registering these trademarks.
Yes. And that's one of the most common DIY mistakes I see is people choose classes. Like I had somebody the other day show me that they had a trademark for website design and they were like, well, I just wanted to protect my website contents. And I'm like, yes, but you don't provide website design services at all. And that's what you're protected for. So things like that.
Where do the lines cross? And is there a way to get, protection everywhere? Is that just expensive by registering it in all the different classes, or are there any certain classes that cover all bases?
So you have to be using the name in connection with the goods or services in order to get a registered trademark in those classes. So as long as you have proof that you're using it in a bunch of different classes, you can file in as many as you'd like. They're $350 per class is the filing fee. And there is not like, there is one class, which is like the umbrella class, which is class 35, which you can, if you're an online retail store selling a variety of goods, rather than applying in every single class of goods, a lot of people will just file in class 35. So if you look up like a Pottery Barn trademark registration, they'll file in class 35 and just say online retail store services featuring, and then list out, dog beds, home decor, lamps, bedding, paper goods, which would all be in different classes, but that's a way of like saving on filing fees.
Interesting. And these classes are in place to protect us by avoiding confusion within the industry. But if someone is in a completely different industry and just doing their thing in a totally different space, they may have the same trademarks.
Yeah, and that happens a lot. Like if you think of Dove, the word Dove soap and Dove chocolate, they're two different companies, but they both have a registered trademark for Dove because consumers aren't confusing soap with chocolate.
Perfect example. Thank you. So let's talk about protection. So let's say I or anyone discovers that their IP has been stolen by another entity. What are the legal steps we should take? What's the initial thing when a trademark or IP violation? When is it worth chasing down, and when should we forget about it?
So with trademarks, you should always, if they're using the exact name or a confusingly similar name, the answer is you should always take action, because if you don't, your trademark becomes diluted, less valuable. You might not even be able to have a trademark if you don't police it. So when you have a trademark, you have to police it. Even if it feels mean, you have to make sure that you're the only one using the name in order to like retain your trademark rights.
We've taken it on a case by case, kind of choose our battles. And there are certain platforms out there where people can sell anything and put a graphic on anything. Some of those platforms are very responsive, and you just submit a request or you go through the website and prove, and we show our USPTO registration, and bam, they'll take that stuff down. But there are also people that are just selling stuff on their own website. So when is it appropriate to contact, say, the violator versus their website host versus a platform, and what are those first steps other than like call the lawyer for the DIY, those DIY
Yeah.
people
So, I mean, if it's an easy, like if it's Meta and like, or YouTube, and they have like a DMCA takedown or, a way to report trademark violations, that's a cost-effective and easy way to get something taken down. So if that's available, you can do that. If it's like a private website, that's harder. And then I would contact, people who are DIYing, you can always try on your own. It's just not as effective as when a lawyer sends a cease and desist letter, but you can always give that a shot.
Maybe we can talk about strengthening legal protection as RV entrepreneurs. You talk about giving entrepreneurs legal peace of mind in about 20 minutes. What are the easiest steps we can take, to strengthen our legal protection today, like right now, but if we didn't do all the planning that we should have when we established our business?
Yeah. So I think you saw that on my template site. So I have a website with like DIY resources.
Yeah.
And free resources, where I have like do-it-yourself contract templates and website policies where you can download them and just fill them in. The goal is 20 minutes or less, and then have them on your website or to use with clients. Like we have a terms of purchase for digital products. So if you're selling courses, that's a good one to just have your customers accept before they check out. So that's a really great place to start if you're DIYing, because it's inexpensive, and they were all drafted by lawyers, aka me, and reviewed by other lawyers. And we had other we had creatives in each relevant field give their input on each contract. So that would be a good place to start.
And I was actually going to ask you about this a little bit later. There's resources like Nolo that's been out there forever, and you offer these wonderful templates for the DIYers out there. But at what point do you recommend consultation over downloading and editing templates?
Probably when you start making money in your business, when you're starting to get some traction with clients. I would make sure that your contract specifically speaks to like the services you're providing, the termination policies you want in place. We've done our best to make them really industry specific. So like the business coaching agreement is like specifically for business coaches. We have a photography agreement that's specific for photographers. So we've done our best to make them like really conducive to each industry. But again, DIY can only go so far.
Right. And it sounds like you've got it kind of narrowed down for the different niches out there. But are there like a top 3 practical actions people need to take? Like, I'm launching a website and I'm going to launch a course on platform X and I'm going to produce content. We kind of talked about the 5 bases to cover. Is that it? Or like, what do you recommend for like the top things you must do right now if you're launching?
If you're launching a business or a course, yeah, those would be probably, a course, for instance, is like, make sure you have a business entity, trademark the name of your course, copyright the contents of your course, have a terms of purchase when people check out, that, they agree to no refunds, they agree to the disclaimers that you want in place. And then having website policies like on your landing page, like a website terms of use and a privacy policy. And then if you have any affiliates, having agreements with your affiliates that protect you and how they can use your name and your logo and how they can sell your course.
Yeah, man, I hope people are taking notes. And since you mentioned affiliates, let's talk about the importance of FTC disclosures. So there's a lot of legal discussion lately specifically among content creators about the FTC requirements to disclose brand partnerships and affiliate arrangements. And I think there's been some rather large cases regarding, like, I don't know if it was Crumble or whoever, but there was some big case law recently about disclosing brand partnerships. So what are the best practices to cover ourselves when we're producing sponsored content?
So if you've gotten a product for free or received compensation for a product in exchange for a review, you have to disclose that. And it has to be clear and conspicuous. And the disclosure has to be near like the affiliate link, if you have one, or a sponsored link. Like it can't just be buried in your terms of use.
Right. So I was going to ask you about that specifically because Amazon has come out with some, a lot of their fine print says exactly that. Must be clear and conspicuous and near the link, or have like hashtag ad next to an affiliate link. So should bloggers be concerned about like updating old legacy content if they've got 16 years of affiliate links in blog posts and now all of a sudden there's new policy? Do we need to go back and fix all that?
Yeah, if you have a live web page with an affiliate link, you need to make sure you have an affiliate disclaimer near the link. If you're doing like an Instagram post or an Instagram story, it has to be on the actual story. It has to be above the fold, like in the caption, like in the first couple of lines where you can still see it if it's like an Instagram post. So, and the FTC website is pretty user-friendly where you can, like, they have guides and things for advertising rules and disclosures. So I would go there too if you're wanting to dive more into this subject. They have pretty thorough resources.
Definitely highly recommend that, as many of our listeners out there have had blogs forever that it was always okay just to put the links in there, but now there's requirements to have something clear and conspicuous. So if we put something above the fold to say that this page includes affiliate links, do you still need to have it right next to the link as well?
Yeah, so above the fold, I was referencing like an Instagram caption. Like it can't be where you click like more. It can't be below that.
Right.
You do on like a blog post still need it to be near the link.
Also, so in both places, you need to basically warn people and then remind people in addition. You might be sensing that I have some ulterior motives here with talking to you. And I'm taking my own notes. I hope other people are as well. Maybe we could talk a few more about, some of the common legal mistakes that like solopreneurs and the small businesses do during the startup phase. I know we talked about, those, the top 5 and things, but many of us kind of turn to, not us, but I see it so often, people turning to social media for answers and like, like the law firm of Facebook. I just cringe when I see that. Without naming any names, can you maybe provide any major mistakes or expensive outcomes from poor business decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of like bad legal advice online all the time. Like I run ads, and on some of my trademark ads, I'll get these comments like, "You don't need a trademark. Like you just own the name by having it." And I'm just like, I can't even respond to this because I'm like losing precious time in my day. But I do respond. I don't have the self-control not to. But there's a lot of bad advice going around on the internet. So also on ChatGPT, because a lot of people are like turning to AI. And I've like tested it with contracts and I'm like, oh God, this is so bad. So just being aware that there's bad stuff, bad information out there, I would say, number one. And just doing, find trusted resources when you're starting out.
You mentioned AI, and one, early on, not early on, but a while ago now, one of the best quotes I ever heard about AI is that AI will not replace lawyers. AI will replace lawyers who don't use AI to be better lawyers. So are you using AI in your work, and to what extent?
So I use AI purely on the content creation front. And it's like after I've written a caption or an email, I'll be like, make this better. And I have a specific one that's like geared towards messaging. It's called Leanne AI. I'm plugging it because it's amazing. One of my clients has this amazing AI tool for like messaging and writing sales page and copy.
Did you say
Leanne
Leanne? Leanne
AI.
AI?
Yeah,
Is that a publicly available
it is.
tool? All right, I'm going to add that to the show notes for sure. I will look that one up and get that there. So you're not turning to, obviously, not turning to AI to cite case law and submit
No,
your. I've heard of that happening.
no, there are horror stories about lawyers like getting
Yeah.
reprimanded because they've written briefs with like fake cases.
Wow.
Luckily,
I just can't
we
believe that.
don't need to, the most like case law really comes into my practice is like responding to office actions with trademarks, with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and we already have like the case law that we rely on to win those. So I don't typically, I don't really have a need for AI with my legal practice. I have tested it though, because in my template shop, I have contract templates for a lot of different service providers like photographers, graphic designers, web designers. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I give them my contracts, if they could create a similar contract for like a florist or other professionals to like make creating these templates easier. And like the answer was just a no. It was a hard no.
Really?
It was a hard no. Or manually creating contract templates.
So be warned, people out there, don't go download the template and ask a bot to write it for you.
Don't. I tried. I wanted to make it easier, but there's no substitution for a lawyer.
Oh, for sure. I've already been browsing those templates, and I'm definitely going to share some links in the show notes. Remind us again, what's involved with a legal VIP day? What can people expect? When should someone consider something like that?
So we have clients who are just starting their business and they start with a legal VIP day. We also have clients who are making like 7-8 figures a year and do them. So it just depends on kind of what level of involvement you want from an attorney at this stage in your business. But we start with the legal audit I was telling you about, just kind of identifying what projects need to be done. And then depending on the level of the VIP day, we include a certain number of trademarks and a certain number of other legal projects like contracts and copyright. And then you have unlimited access to my template shop for a year. So typically, like, we work with a lot of online coaches and course creators. So somebody might have like one-on-one coaching and a course, in which case they need 2 trademarks, they need the course copyrighted, and then they also need a one-on-one contract with their clients. And then they can use the template shop for anything else that comes up, like if they have affiliates or they're hosting retreats or they have, other things that they need templates for. So,
well, it's sounds like that's all incredibly valuable to someone either just getting started and planning ahead or looking back and realizing they may need to cover some bases in places. So where's the best place people can learn more about how you can help them?
My Instagram is at Berkeley Sweet Apple. And then my law firm website is berkeleysweetappleLaw.com. And then the template site we just rebranded and it's called The Business Studio. So it's thebusinessstudio.com.
Right. I'm going to get all those links in the show notes. Berkeley, I can't thank you enough for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you. This has been great.
Boy, that was an eye-opener. I hope you were taking notes. I sure was. Huge thanks to Berkeley Sweet Apple for joining us and unpacking what so many small business owners tend to ignore until it's too late. If you're an RV entrepreneur or digital nomad, the one thing to make note of here is simple. Plan ahead. Most of the legal horror stories Berkeley shared could have been prevented with just a little upfront effort. She pointed out a few key things to consider. Forming an LLC is a small investment with big protection. Your contracts and website policies matter, and yes, they need to be legit. Borrowing that image or brand name can cost you thousands. Legal DIY has its place, but sometimes you need professional eyes. We also talked a lot about Berkeley's services, contract templates, and legal audits, so check those out at berkeleysweetappleLaw.com. If you have a legal horror story to share, drop by the RVE community group on Facebook to warn others about what went wrong. And if there's one key takeaway here, whether you're building a 6-figure brand or just blogging from your RV with spotty Wi-Fi, don't wait for a lawsuit to start thinking like a CEO. Do the boring stuff now. And if you think you got this on your own, remember,
there's no substitution for a lawyer.
Your RV adventures are worth sharing. With an RV Life profile, you can connect with a community of RV enthusiasts, engage in meaningful conversations, and inspire others on their journey. It's not just about where you go. It's about the memories you make and the people you meet along the way. Start sharing your unique RV experiences at RVLife.com.